Welcome to Waters World. I'm Jesse Waters. You probably noticed a different backdrop here. We're starting to show off on Hannity's set tonight because we're interviewing the man himself, Sean Hannity, who apparently too much of a big shot to come down to the Waters World studio. But I don't care.
Wait a minute. This is Waters World, and I'm entering it.
That's right. That's right. It's all my world, Sean. Anyway, 1 year ago, President Trump was elected, and still the left can't get over it. Waters World made a pilgrimage to Washington Square Park on the anniversary of his election, where a bunch of liberals were screaming in protest. We're going to have some more of that later. But first, to celebrate 1 year anniversary, here is a montage of the mainstream media melting down when they heard Trump had won. Roll it.
Crying tonight. I'm not sure how much of America, but a very, very significant portion, and I mean literally crying.
Everybody is crying and so upset, and it is the end of their world.
Feels like the end of the world.
On Lifetime last night, and I was slowly getting drunk is what happened to me.
How do we explain how this is possible?
How did this happen? Experienced politician versus racist fake gynecologist.
Get your abortions now, because we're going to be and we're going to have to live with it.
You're awake, by the way. You're not having a terrible, terrible dream. Also, you're not dead and you haven't gone to hell. This is your life now. This is our election now. This is us. This is our country.
This is a different Earth today than it was 24 hours ago. It's a different place. It just is different.
The woman who President Obama called the most qualified person ever to run for the White House couldn't break through. The question remains, who can?
Deeper concerns tonight that the world's shining light of democracy has gone dark.
Decency lost last night, and that's what's so hurtful about this.
This was a white lash. This was a white lash against a changing country. It was a white lash against a black president in part. And that's the part where the pain comes.
I kind of push back against the advancement of African Americans, of Hispanics, of women, of Muslim Americans.
It is a mourning moment for those people, and it is a moment filled with fear.
I'm on this network and people know my attitudes about things. They come up to me and they're scared, depressed, despair, desperate even, almost clinging to me.
It was a rough night for everybody, I think. We're worried. The people are worried. Okay, he's the president. Now what?
It feels like we're trying to avoid the apocalypse, and half of the country is voting for the asteroid.
Is there a doomsday plan for a time like this?
Sean, you look giddy when you're watching that.
There's a part of me that is, because they're so dumb.
Yeah.
Look, it's never easy for a Republican to actually win when you're looking at electoral votes. But you saw the crowds and you saw the momentum and you understand. I gave out for an entire year every night the statistics. How many people in poverty on food stamps, out of the labor force, the worst recovery since the 40s, lowest home ownership in 50 years, double the debt. Nobody listened. Listen, the people that are suffering.
That's right. Well, they're willfully blind. They don't want to see it because they don't want to travel outside the coast. Now, I just want to welcome you to Waters World. This is your debut. Are you nervous?
Yeah, I'm shaking like a leaf, can't you tell? On my set.
You look nervous. Do you
like
need
this.
anything?
This is the first time you had Hannity behind you. What is this? It's Waters World, and you're all living. What is that?
It's good. It's my moniker. You know how you have your thing with the football? I have the world thing. And the collar. I got a few things.
I will say this. I watched this, and I'm seeing this. This meltdown has gone on for a year.
Yeah.
Look, I'm a conservative. You're pretty conservative. Here's the deal, though. This is now bordering on a psychotic collective breakdown by the left. They can't handle how wrong they were. They just, and it's also dangerous for the president.
So you think it's based upon the fact that they called the election so wrong?
No,
they can't get over that.
There is a swamp. There are forces that are working every day that want this president out. Doesn't matter how they do it. You got the deep state, you got the liberal media, you got Democrats, then you got weak, timid, spineless Republicans and never Trumpers. They want him out. They'll do anything they can do to get this man out of office.
And you're right. And they're doing it day after day. And I believe it's because the Democrats are completely shut out of power. So the media now is the tip of the spear. Trump has declared war on the media. Let's look at the history going back a year of Trump versus the press. Roll it.
Just because of the attack of fake news and attacking our network, I just want to ask you, sir.
I'm changing it from fake news, though.
Doesn't that undermine...
Very fake news.
I know, but aren't you...
When the media lies to people, I will never, ever let them get away with it. They have their own agenda, and their agenda is not your agenda. They could not defeat us in the primaries, and they could not defeat us in the general election, and we will continue to expose them for what they are, and most importantly, we will continue to win, win, win.
So who do you think is winning? Because right now the ratings and circulation are up with the media, but credibility is way down.
I don't think they ever recover credibility-wise. No. I'm watching this. I love the fact. I think the single greatest quality of Donald Trump is he's not going to take your lies. He's not going to take your misinformation. He calls you out for what you are. And now the American people, this is a media bias thing we've, as conservatives, have talked about for years. Now you see it day after day, night after night, newspaper article after newspaper article. And in the sense, I don't see how they recover any credibility.
Well, he so successfully branded them, and that's one of his strengths. The fake news has been so deadly, and now no one trusts anything, whether it's even right or wrong.
Yeah, listen, I think people are hip to media bias.
Yeah.
I said in 2007, this is before you were born.
That's about right. Thank you. Still have the looks.
Yeah, you still look good. I said journalism's dead, Jesse. It's done. It's buried. It's finished. And it's sad because people deserve the truth. You know, there are times I definitely have a conservative view because I believe conservatism works. But you just have to look at truth sometimes.
Yeah.
And they're so ideological. Everything is seen through the prism of this hatred that they have towards the president. It's not good for the American people. It's not good for the country. And in that sense, they are the opposition party. They are what Bannon said they are.
That's right. And he was blasted for saying that. And he didn't say the media is the enemy of the people. He said the fake news media is the enemy.
That's most of the media.
That's true. That's about 90% of the media. Yeah. I want to get your assessment about the president's international relations. He's had a lot of speeches and going on a lot of trips. Here are some of the highlights.
A better future is only possible if your nations drive out the terrorists and drive out the extremists. Drive them out. Drive them out.
Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and for his regime. The United States is ready, willing, and able, but hopefully this will not be necessary. While we will always welcome new citizens who share our values and love our people, our borders will always be closed to terrorism and extremism of any kind.
Now I know you love Little Rocket Man.
Love Rocket Man. Love Rocket Man. Well, you know, look, we went through 8 years. Imagine this. We had a president that couldn't say the words radical Islamic terrorism, man-caused disasters, all these euphemisms, overseas contingency operations. You know, unfortunately, this world is dark. There is a lot of evil. There are people that plot, plan, scheme. They want to kill our children. We see terrorism all throughout Western Europe, all throughout the world, really. We see it on our shores now. And the president identifies it, wants to take measures to protect the American people. One of the most challenging is Rocket Man. You make a bad deal, you appease dictators.
That's right.
The way Bill Clinton tried to bribe Kim Jong-il, Kim Jong-un's father, with energy and millions of taxpayer dollars, just like Obama did with the mullahs in Iran. You can't appease dictatorships. Then they get nuclear weapons. Now they're trying to get ICBM capability. You marry that, then the continental United States is in jeopardy. There will be a confrontation, and the sad thing is, there's not a lot of good options here.
No.
You have to almost take it off the pad, and then you run the risk if you take out the nuclear sites, nuclear fallout. Will he launch against South Korea?
No, it's a very thorny situation. So no bowing, no apology tours, no more leading from behind. What is Trump's doctrine?
Do you know when you talk, you smile talk? That's a pretty.
Because I'm on the set of Hannity.
That's a clever trick. It's like it's built in. Even though you're saying stuff that some people don't like, you still got to smile.
Yeah, you know, those worthless Democrats really need to get thrown to Gitmo. But if you say it with a smile,
it's all good.
It's all a joke. No, the Trump doctrine. What do you think? What is it?
Trump doctrine is what he said in his speech in South Korea. I thought for this early in his presidency, what he's been able to accomplish, what the speech he gave in the Middle East, the speech that he gave in South Korea this past week, probably two of the most powerful speeches, and such a contrast to what Obama did in his 8 years. And it shows America reestablishing its strength on the world stage. Look, the world needs a strong America, right? Especially in the age of radicalism and extremism and fundamentalism and people telling their kids, strap bombs on yourself, go kill innocent people, there's 72 virgins in heaven. Right. You know, these are dangerous times. Right. So without America, this world is worse off. Am I leaving Waters World?
Not yet, Sean. We have one more thing. I want to get your take.
I thought I was getting the brush off goodbye. Oh, go ahead.
No. But thank you for bloviating. I really enjoy it.
Is this like O'Reilly Jr. now? You actually, you know, your mannerisms
That's
are
your
like...
nickname?
Well, no, but your mannerisms are like Bill. Do you know that? Has anyone ever told you that?
No one's ever mentioned that. It's the first time I've ever heard.
That's so not true. That's so not true.
You got me on that one. All right, let's talk about domestic policy. Here are some highlights.
A recent Department of Labor report showed the fewest jobless claims since 1973. Our stock market just hit another record high. It's the highest it's ever been in history by far. We've created about $5.4 trillion only in stock market value. $5.4 trillion. Today, I am keeping another promise to the American people by nominating Judge Neil Gorsuch of the United States Supreme Court to be of the United States Supreme Court. I think there's blame on both sides, and I have no doubt about it, and you don't have any doubt about it either.
All right, so that was the Charlottesville press conference. That really hurt the brand. But, I mean, you have Gorsuch, you have the regulations he's tearing up, great economic growth, but no real legislative accomplishments yet to speak of.
You know, it's interesting. This past week on the show, I did what I call a mini monologue, and I addressed it to especially the Senate. And I'm like, okay, we saw what happened. They were making a big deal in the media. Okay, we lost Virginia, New Jersey.
Blue states.
And Washington, blue state. And they're making a big deal. Oh, this is foretell what the future is. The Republicans do hold their destiny in their hands. Yep. The Senate failed miserably on repealing and replacing. If they fail on this economic plan and fail to get the economy at its potential growth, they're all risking their future.
Do you like the tax cut plan? Because your taxes are going up, Sean.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. So are yours.
That's true.
It is true. You know, I don't like it because it seems that the Republicans have abandoned Reagan conservative supply side economics. Right. I'm not a nationalist populist. I'm a Reagan conservative, always have been. Mm-hmm. And Reagan was able to show through cutting the top marginal rate 70 to 28%, we doubled revenues to the government.
It stimulates growth.
21 million new jobs created. At the time, it was the longest period of peacetime economic growth in history. And I want those. I started as a dishwasher. I want the dishwashers.
We can tell, Sean. We can tell.
How can you tell?
It's the soft.
Look at my hand. You kidding? They're more busted up than anything in my body.
Let me ask you before I let you go. You're a Hollywood guy now. Hollywood elite. You have a movie.
Wow, that's so
the biggest
insulting.
Insult you could.
That's the biggest insult. Yeah.
Why should people watch the movie Let There Be Light?
Okay, what I did here was on paper insane. It was. We shouldn't have been successful, and I'm not saying that. I'm not patting myself on the back. I saw a script that was just the opposite of what we see every week in Hollywood. It's simple, formulaic. Sex, violence, Jennifer Aniston falls in love, falls out of love. Mm-hmm. And then the next movie is falls in love with somebody else, falls out of love with somebody else. Okay. And then cartoons and comic books, mm-hmm. a lot of those. And I'm like, the American people, there's all this red in here, and they have a contempt for conservatives and Christians. I saw this script, and I knew instinctively that it would touch people's hearts, it would touch their emotions, even their souls. The letters I'm getting, I've now gotten so many reports that entire theaters of people are crying. Wow. And as a result, we started with 373 theaters, then we went to nearly 700, now we're at 900. Thank you all. But honestly, I did it it was a wing and a prayer.
Well, congratulations. It was a wing and a prayer having you on Waters World. We may even have you back. All right. So, Sean, thank you very much.
This is a very intimidating
Coming
experience.
up, liberals mark 1 year since Trump's election by screaming aimlessly into the sky. And Waters World was there to capture it. President Trump continuing his successful 12-day trip to Asia. Mr. Trump already making good on promises to promote the denuclearization of North Korea and expanding American interests in the region. But you wouldn't know it by watching the mainstream media. They're focused on creating fake news like this.
Mr. Trump feeding Asian carp in a koi pond, first tossing spoonfuls of fish food before emptying the entire box.
President Trump broke protocol in Japan by dumping an entire box of fish food into a Japanese koi pond.
The president said, enough of this spoon stuff, okay?
Just take it.
Yeah, I know. The Japanese president said, okay, I'll do that too.
Joining me now to analyze the president's Asian swing is former Trump campaign manager Corey Lewandowski. So as we all know, the whole fish deal was fake news, Corey. Turns out the Japanese prime minister, as the video shows, dumps his food first, and President Trump follows. Now, if they're going to lie about feeding fish, what else has the mainstream media been lying to us about?
Well, Jesse, as you know, they lie to us about everything. And this president is a person who wants to get things done quickly. So he dumped the whole thing in quickly to get to the next thing. This is what we want. He demands results. Feed the fish quick and let's move on.
That's right. Let's move on. I mean, if the media, they shouldn't be coy about their bias. I want to show you some footage of the golf match between President Trump and the Japanese prime minister. Kind of a little issue here. Trump's obviously in the fairway because he's hitting it straight. And the Japanese prime minister, we believe, not totally confirmed it's him or not, but find himself in the bunker and hits out of the trap and is climbing up. There he is in white and oops, falls back into the sand trap. Up, there he goes again in slow motion. Goodbye. So this is just one of the differences between President Obama and President Trump. He's playing a lot of golf with these world leaders and probably forming strong relationships.
Well, what we know is that the president of Japan and President Trump have a very good, strong relationship. And where one of those relationships was formed is on the golf course. And the president had the president of Japan here in the U.S. They played golf. This was the reciprocity to that. They have a good, strong relationship. And when you're with someone 4 or 5 hours at a time, you get to build on that relationship.
That's exactly right. Also, another difference between President Trump and President Obama, how they greeted the Japanese emperor. I think everybody remembers President Obama with the deep, deep bow to the emperor. President Trump, just a little nod and a nice handshake. Wow, do you remember that, Corey, a few years back? Woo, wasn't good for President Obama.
Well, I remember it very vividly, but I also know that the mainstream media didn't want to cover it, and they said, well, it wasn't a big deal, except American exceptionalism was at stake. And the difference now is that other world leaders respect President Trump and show him the respect that he deserves. And I don't think they had that same respect for Barack Obama when he was the president.
No, they did not. And you're right about that. The mainstream media completely buried the bow. Let's get into someone from the mainstream media, NBC News reporter out there asking President Trump about the shooting that had just happened in Texas. Roll the tape.
You've talked about wanting to put extreme vetting on people trying to come into the United States, but I wonder if you would consider extreme vetting for people trying to buy a gun.
Trying to what?
Buy a gun.
If you did what you're suggesting, there would have been no difference 3 days ago, and you might not have had that very brave person who happened to have a gun or a rifle in his truck go out and shoot him and hit him and neutralize him.
Now, this really bothers me, Corey, because we do have extreme vetting for gun purchases, and the vetting wasn't done properly. The Air Force never reported that this guy had these domestic charges against him, and that was the reason he got the gun, not because we don't do any background checks.
You know, when the president's overseas and he's just south of a madman, why don't we actually talk about the things that the world cares about, which is containing that madman in North Korea?
By madman, I think you mean Little Rocket Man. And the president had a message for Little Rocket Man. Let's see what it was.
You know, we sent 3 of the largest aircraft carriers in the world, and they're right now positioned. We have a nuclear submarine also positioned. We have many things happening that we hope, in fact, I'll go a step further. We hope to God we never have to use. With that being said, I really believe that it makes sense for North Korea to come to the table and to make a deal.
This is textbook gunboat diplomacy, where you have an armada right off the coast and you say, hey, little rocket man, why don't you come to the table?
Look, Jesse, I don't think Rocket Man wants to test this president's resolve about his ability to keep our country safe from a foreign enemy. And, you know, he was very clear when Rocket Man wanted to talk about launching a missile at our territory in Guam. Let me tell you this. I know the president very well. Make no mistake about it. If there is an attack on the United States, I believe they will respond in kind times 100.
That's true. And speaking of gunship diplomacy, we had some granddaughter diplomacy. Arabella, President Trump's granddaughter, I believe speaks fluent Mandarin Chinese, and that was on display in a video when the president met with the Chinese leader. Roll it.
This is really something special. You know, I know that this was something that they had talked about for a long time inside the White House to make sure that she'd have the opportunity to do that. And this is not the first time she's had the opportunity to speak Chinese to foreign leaders. And it's really special for the president. I'm really proud for him and his family.
I am too. And the Chinese culture really values the children and places a lot of stock in the parenting of successful children. When you have very successful children, as the president does, the Chinese people believe that that really says a lot about the parents. Now, he was also in China and called out the Chinese on trade. Let's hear it.
I do not blame China or any other country, of which there are many, for taking advantage of the United States on trade. I wish previous administrations in my country saw what was happening and did something about it. They did not, but I will.
Unfortunately, the people who were running our country before this administration, they were weak, they were bad negotiators, and they were taken advantage of. And those days are over, and now it's a policy of putting America first, which means making the best trade deals for our country for a change.
Well, they're actually doing it, because I have a thing right here. 37 major deals U.S. firms signed with Chinese entities during Trump's visit. I think they're to the tune of $250 billion. So it looks like things are happening on that front. Corey, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Coming up, real American videos of the week. Americans are crazy, and they love animals. So Watters World is debuting a new segment called Real American Videos of the Week, which combines the two. Joining me now to analyze is former ESPN reporter and contributor at The Federalist, Britt McHenry. Okay, Britt, so I'm on the internet and I'm looking at the Buffalo Bills fans going crazy at a tailgate. I don't even think he realizes he's on fire, and they're putting him out with beer.
That's a tame day for Bills Mafia. I used to cover them every Sunday.
Did you?
Yeah, I hope no IPAs were ruined in that.
This is something that's catching on, courtesy of TFM. Total Frat Move sent us these videos. People are playing golf with their buddies, and then they're hitting each other with the golf carts. Let's see it.
Holy
Oh, wow.
That usually happens, maybe, for some people, not me, around like the fourth hole. That's when you certainly try to enjoy the day, right?
I think after the fourth hole, maybe some drinks have been had. Is that what you're getting to?
Just a few. But they did them dirty on that second one.
That wasn't right. That was a setup.
Yeah.
Yeah, if anybody tried that with me, they'd get a 4-iron through the head. Let's get to some nice videos. Here is a raccoon with a dog in a pool. why I picked that video, but it just fascinates me.
Find someone who loves you as much as that dog loved that raccoon.
That was beautiful. All right, now let's get to some real news that you probably didn't hear this week. First up, a woman who worked for a government contracting firm was fired for flipping off President Trump's motorcade last month as she rode her bicycle nearby. The moment was caught on camera, and she was terminated for violating her employer's code of conduct policy. The woman's not too upset about it. There's a GoFundMe page for it. She's already raised more than $30,000. So there she is, giving the middle finger. And she got canned, and she said if she had the chance, she'd do it again.
Well, when you get $30,000 in a GoFundMe account, I guess a lot of people would. I think that there should be accountability, though, for this complete disrespect of the president. And you can argue there's freedom of speech, freedom of expression. Guess what? There's consequences to that.
That's
and
right.
We're witnessing that now. And don't post things on social media because, newsflash, I'm sure your employer, all employers will see it.
All right, a professor at Florida International University believes that toxic masculinity has fueled the rise of President Trump and the alt-right, whatever that means, and uses the Disney movie Beauty and the Beast as an analogy. Professor Bryant Skoulos compares movie villain Gaston to President Trump, saying that the villagers who enabled him were, quote, all responsible for the violent, closed-minded, toxic masculinity that nearly destroyed their small community. So, I mean, my 6-year-old girls, they can't even watch Beauty and the Beast anymore, Britt?
When I was a little girl, I would go around with a book in my hands because all young girls love Belle and Beauty and the Beast. In fact, that's why Emma Watson said she wanted to play her, because of the intelligence and the independence. I think that professor needs to team up with the DC librarian who banned Dr. Seuss and find the safe space all these liberals love, because that's just ridiculous.
That's right. The professor's probably jealous of Gaston. And whoever Gaston is. California's NAACP is pushing for state lawmakers to support a campaign to remove the Star-Spangled Banner as the country's national anthem. The group says the song is one of the most racist, pro-slavery, anti-black songs in the American lexicon. Britt, what is racist about the Star-Spangled Banner?
Nothing. It's a minute, literally a minute, that the country should be able to come together as Americans to honor service members, and it just keeps becoming this discussion it shouldn't be. A Seattle Seahawks player on Thursday Night Football ahead of Veterans Day said, oh, I'm going to stand now to make a statement that I actually do respect the troops. Pick a side. Pick what you're standing for or you're not standing for. You shouldn't have to make a statement for the national anthem. We should all be standing up, showing respect, or go to the bench.
I agree. And finally, great news on the job front. U.S. economy is at a 17-year low when it comes to the unemployment rate, adding 261,000 jobs in the month of October and sending the jobless rate down to 4.1%. I didn't really hear a lot about this. I wonder why, Britt.
Because most of the media is more concerned with the method in which President Trump is feeding fish in Asia. I mean, let's come on, let's be real. The government projected, a loss of 30,000 jobs after Hurricane Irma and Hurricane Harvey, and they gained 18,000.
We thank our nation's veterans
but it's
for their
always just picking apart the president and First Lady Melania Trump, which I'm Team Stiletto, by the way.
Okay. And I believe it was Paul Krugman who said that the market was going to crash when Trump became president, and now it is a historic high. I'm sure Krugman is enjoying his 401k nonetheless.
Yes, absolutely.
Britt, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, Veterans Day, Water's World style. And later, liberals scream on the anniversary of President Trump's election, Waters was there. Today, we thank our nation's veterans for their service and sacrifice. And in honor of Veterans Day, we take a look at some iconic moments from the War on Terror. We begin with President George W. Bush.
This nation stands with the good people of New York City. I can hear you, the rest of the world hears you, and the people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
States like these and their terrorist allies constitute an axis of evil, arming to threaten the peace of the world. Major combat operations in Iraq have ended. In the Battle of Iraq, the United States and our allies have prevailed.
Joining me now, former Navy SEAL Jocko Willink, who commanded SEAL Team 3, the most decorated special ops unit in the Iraq War. He received the Silver Star and Bronze Star. Jocko is also the author of the new book, Discipline Equals Freedom, Field Manual. So, Jocko, I don't know about you, but I got chills watching that montage of President George W. Bush. You served under him in Iraq. How would you assess his performance as commander-in-chief during the War on Terror?
Well, one thing I think that we all felt about President Bush was that he really believed in what we were doing and what America needed to do against these evil powers in the world. And I think we felt that all the way down through the chain of command right to the front lines.
He was a very black and white president, and after 9/11, I believe the country needed someone like that. To put it in very simple terms, good and evil. Some people didn't like that about him, but that was something, personally, I really think the country needed. Do you agree?
I do agree, and there's a lot of complexities that you can put on top of these subjects, but the fact of the matter is, when your nation is attacked by people that want to completely destroy your culture and your way of life, then you do have to do something about it, and it really does become pretty black and white.
There was a spirit about the guy that he really rose to the occasion. I don't think a lot of other people could have ever done that.
Well, it definitely is a really challenging position. I mean, no one really thought that an attack like 9/11 was going to happen, and it obviously changed the lives of everyone that I knew in the military. They'd completely changed their lives, and clearly for President Bush, his entire idea of what it was going to be president completely changed that day, and yes, I think he stepped up.
Something else that changed dramatically was the country of Iraq. Let's take a look at some moments there.
At this hour, American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm Iraq, to free its people, and to defend the world from grave danger. Yesterday, December the 13th, at around 8:30 p.m. Baghdad time, United States military forces captured Saddam Hussein alive. And now the former dictator of Iraq will face the justice he denied to millions.
Just an incredible moment, finding Saddam in that little hole like a dog, and then delivering the justice that he so deserved. What do you think about when you see those images, Jocko?
I remember going in Iraq and various places that we would go, former Saddam palaces, former Saddam compounds, and to be in rooms that were clearly torture chambers that he had used against his own people, hooks on the wall, just really disturbing images that we walked through as we secured and cleared parts of that city. So that's what I really remember, and it was awful to see, and it was something that as we arrived on the ground and we saw with our own two eyes, we absolutely knew that we were doing the right thing. And
it was the right thing. You say what you want about WMDs, if you had gone in knowing what you know now, that's ancient history. Obviously now the people in Iraq, their lives are much, much better. Let's take a look at Afghanistan, a place where America still is.
The United States military has begun strikes against al-Qaeda terrorist training camps and military installations of the Taliban regime in Afghanistan.
As Commander-in-Chief, I have determined that it is in our vital national interest to send an additional 30,000 U.S. troops to Afghanistan. After 18 months, our troops will begin to come home. Tonight, I can report to the American people and to the world. The United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden, the leader of al-Qaeda.
So, Jocko, we finally got bin Laden after all those years, but American soldiers are still, to this day, in Afghanistan. I'll let you have the last word.
Well, this is going to be a long war, and this war is going to continue. This is an ideology filled with evil and hate, and if we don't protect ourselves from them and actively go out and prosecute these targets around the world, they will be at our doorstep again.
I agree. All right, Jocko, happy Veterans Day, and thank you so much for your service.
It was an honor to serve. Thank you.
All right, apparently 1 year isn't enough to get over Hillary Clinton's historic election loss. So liberals are screaming at the sky, and Water's World was there to capture every priceless moment. That's next. It's been an entire year since Donald Trump was elected president, and liberals still can't get over it. This week, to mark the 1 year anniversary, Democrats gathered in New York City to scream helplessly at the sky. And of course, Water's World had to check it out. Do you think screaming into the sky makes your side look good?
Screaming into the sky makes our side look fun.
Funny. Why don't you guys do what Republicans did on the anniversary of Obama's election?
What did Republicans do on the anniversary of Obama's election?
Drink heavily.
That's a false dichotomy and false comparison you just created.
Take it down a notch.
When you say Trump has to go, what does that mean?
He's not mentally fit to be president.
How has Trump demonstrated mental unfitness?
He's very hot-tempered, and basically it's like he needs a babysitter.
If Trump needs a babysitter, then what do you need?
I'm afraid he has a point.
How has Trump changed your life so far? Is that it?
Yeah.
Okie dokie.
You want to let out a scream right now for me? Oh, you got that spittle all over the mic.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah.
All right, I have a handkerchief.
Yeah, can you wipe that off for me? You can do better than that. A little bit better? All right, you need to work on that.
I don't know what we're yelling about!
You feel better? Somewhat. You want a pacifier?
I'll go yourself.
Do you think wearing a Make America Great Again hat is fascist?
I think a hat that says Make America Great Again is the same in Germany in 1933 as wearing a hat that says Make Germany Good Again.
You think Trump is like Hitler?
There are two differences. The first is that he has his finger on the nuclear button.
I think my strongest asset, maybe by far, is my temperament. I have a winning temperament.
And two, Hitler had a dinky little mustache and he has that orange squirrel on his head.
I don't wear a toupee. It's my hair. I swear.
What do you think tonight's going to change substantively?
Conversations like this change people's minds, and they impact. Blog is going to impact me, and hopefully it will impact you.
Oh,
also.
Definitely.
Whatever, dude. Whatever.
Do you know who I am?
No, I'm not sure. So,
Tom Waters.
Tom Waters.
This is my world.
Pleasure to meet you, Tom Waters, and your world. I actually do recognize you, don't I?
Thank you very much.
It's such a pleasure.
Wow, that package was a real scream. Up next, love letters to me, Tom. Time now for your love letters. First up, Brendan King tweets, "Yo, just want to say I love your show, brother. Absolutely love your awesomeness and funny sense of humor. And I like that you always keep it real. You're the GOAT, brother." GOAT is greatest of all time, for those of you who don't know. Andrew writes, "Last week, me and my dad were watching your show. So my dad asked what the score was because we were also watching a football game. So I said, Waters 30, Democrats nothing." Always pitching a shutout over here. And finally, Bob Atherton says, "Really like your show and your interview segments with the uninformed. Keep it up, Jesse." Checks in the mail. That's all for us tonight. Be sure to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And remember, I'm Waters, and this is my world.